We'll see if anybody rolls on in. It's episode 235 of McRae Live. It is Thursday, January the 11th, 2024, 2:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voiceman Studios in Toronto, Canada. And this is a topic that a lot of you guys wanted me to talk about, so I'm going to talk about it. Which is, of course, horror public domain. Well, specifically the Disney characters. There's a lot of things that are in the public domain that you could make a horror movie about. But specifically, we're talking about the Disney characters, good old Mickey Mouse. Ha! Ha! Donald! Ha! Not that Mickey Mouse, though. He's not in public domain. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're all doing well and that you're enjoying your week and that your 2024 is off to a good start. Like I said, we'll see who rolls on in throughout the rest of the show. I'm slowly but surely trying to get some sort of thing back and going, some sort of, consistency and all that kind of stuff, back and running. But, the internet is very unforgiving because, the second that you decide to, that's why there's a lot of people that will, and look, if it's your full-time job, I get it. You probably have to do this. People, before they go on vacation or they take a break, they will actually have say they're gone for 2 weeks. They'll actually have 2 weeks worth of content ready to go, scheduled, so it automatically uploads while they're away. And if YouTube's your full-time job, then I can understand that. It's like getting somebody to cover for you while you're away. Do you know what I mean? And doing your work while you're away. I mean, when you go away on vacation, it's not like the work that you do ceases to exist, right? Somebody has stepped in, somebody is taking over for you, covering for you, whatever the case is, right? To what degree will depend on the job that you have. And so I can understand that. You know what I mean? YouTube, obviously not my full-time job. So, but I sometimes forget that, the second you take a little bit of time away, the algorithm, YouTube doesn't care about you anymore. And it doesn't take much. It can take a week. And if you're not consistent in a week, YouTube says, anyway, you're gone. And it's just and it takes so much to build back up and all that kind of stuff. And so it's incredibly frustrating that that's how it works, but that's how they get you to just be zombies, right? There's so many people that are creating content online that are just content. They have to do it. They have to day in, day out. Because the second they miss, a few days, it's oh my God, I gotta get. It's kind of like how they enslave you in a lot of ways. They just keep going and going and going and going and going. But anyway, listen, if you're making millions of dollars, it's not a big deal. But so I've taken some time away, obviously, because we're finishing up It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, but also I wanted some time away and just to kind of, rejuvenate and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see who rolls on in. If anybody still cares about these shows, we'll see. So today I wanted to talk about, the horror movie, the trend that seems to be coming out, the trend that seems to be hot at the moment, which is public domain horror movies, specifically as it relates to the Disney characters of, Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh and Bambi and Peter Pan, that kind of thing. There's a lot of fairy tales and stories that are in the public domain that you could make a horror movie about. We're specifically talking about the Disney, stuff, right? Just because something's in the public domain doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing to make a horror movie about. But a few people have wanted me, more than a few people have wanted me to talk about this because it's pretty relevant at the moment. And so I'm going to talk about it and give my thoughts on it. So let's dive into it. So this sort of started from my recollection. It sort of began last year or the year before? with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And this was a take on a horror movie, slasher movie take on Winnie the Pooh. And, you know, it's essentially about Christopher Robin abandoning, and he's going away, and then he comes back and in the forest, and he finds out that they're evil and they're slasher villains, and they, you know, tear shit up. Okay, great. That movie was, according to box office, was incredibly successful. I think it cost, what, like $100,000 to make or something like that. And it made over $5 or $6 million. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I don't know how much they spent on marketing. But it certainly wasn't a total disaster. You know, when you spend I mean, It's Me, Billy Chapter 2 costs more than $100,000. So, you know, so they spent not very much money and made some money. So, and because there was, listen, you know, there's the old saying, right? You know, bad press, or there's no such thing as bad press, right? And so, you know, even when the movie came out and it was getting lambasted and just ripped apart and ripped to shreds, and I don't know what the Rotten Tomatoes thing is, was it like 10% or something? I don't know. You know, people wanted to check it out. They wanted to see it. It's one of those things where, you know, this is the kind of thing where it's so, you know, even bad press for a movie like this, because it's relatively low risk. It's a $100,000 movie, right? You know what I mean? So it's relatively low risk. And, you know, it's going to make its money because people are curious, right? And that's generally what these movies are going to be. So it did, I mean, it, you know, I said did well. It did, you know, it is what it is. And then Mickey Mouse, the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse, okay, not Mickey Mouse in general, not the Mickey Mouse you know from, you know, Sunday evening movies, Disney Sunday night movie, not the Mickey Mouse from Disney World, not the Mickey Mouse with the red and the big shoes and the ha ha, not that Mickey Mouse. Okay, he's not in public domain. I don't think Disney would allow it. But Steamboat Willie, which is the what, 1928? 29, something like that. The first, the very first time that Mickey Mouse ever appeared. I don't even know if he was called Mickey Mouse at that time. Was he? Was it Mickey Mouse as Steamboat Willie, or was he just Steamboat Willie? I don't know. Anyway, the black and white thing, you know, where he's there and it's on the boat. That guy, he's in public domain. So the way he looks in that cartoon is public domain. So you or I or anybody else can take that version of Mickey Mouse, the black and white version. So we can't add color. Well, we can add color to him if we wanted to. It just can't be the color that, you know, he's known as, right? We can do whatever the hell we want with him, as far as I know, as long as it doesn't replicate what is, you know, what is already known. I mean, if you want to put him in a tuxedo, you can. But you can't make him look like the Disney version of Mickey Mouse that we know today. So that's what's in the public domain. So it's not just Mickey Mouse is in the public domain. It's Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse is in the public domain. That's what's in the public domain, just so we're clear, because not a lot of people know that. They only read, you know, headlines. So you can take that version and do whatever the hell you want. Okay, great. And people have, and people are getting ready to do it. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people that are doing it. So now the question becomes, well, let's first read this actually. Let me go over and read this article. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. This is basically where it comes from, or what sort of got things going. January 1st, trailer for Mickey Mouse slasher film drops on same day Steamboat Willie character enters public domain. Well, that didn't take long. On the first day that Disney's 1928 short Steamboat Willie, and I was right, 1928, Steamboat Willie entered the public domain, a trailer has dropped for a horror comedy film. We got to make sure, you know, we make that distinction, featuring none other than Mickey Mouse as the killer. The synopsis for the film, called Mickey's Mousetrap, reads, it's Alex's 21st birthday, but she's stuck at the amusement arcade on a late shift, so her friends decide to surprise her. But a masked killer dressed as Mickey Mouse decides to play a game of his own with them, which she must survive. The trailer features, a a person in a Mickey Mouse costume wearing what resembles a hockey jersey without the letters, attacking a victim and stalking others inside a Chuck E. Cheese type of place, reminiscent of last year's horror hit Five Nights at Freddy's. There also is Scream-like self-awareness about the horror genre, including one character predicting the other is going to get killed once he says, "I'll be right back." Quote, "Well, he's dead. If he was in a horror movie, you'd never say, 'I'll be right back,' because then you don't," he explains. End quote. End quote, he explains. Grammar's not all there, but anyway. The trailer also features the words, quote, "A place for fun, a place for friends, a place for hunting. The mouse is out," end quote. The movie was directed by Jamie Bailey, who said in a statement, quote, "We just wanted to have fun with it all. I mean, it's Steamboat Willie's Mickey Mouse murdering people. It's ridiculous. We ran with it and had fun doing it, and I think it shows." The film stars Sophie McIntosh, Calum Swag, am I saying that right? I'm not pronouncing any of these names. Holy cow. Well, you know who you are. There's a lot of funny names to pronounce there, and I don't want to phonetically take like 10 minutes to figure it out. But you know who you are. You know who you are, Sophie and Calum and Allegra, Ben and Demir and Nick and Simon. You know who you are. And was produced by Paul Whitney and Mark Popejoy, Alexander Guzman, and Andrew Agopaswicz. Man. Heck of a name. With Film Corps' Memferda co-producing. Okay, wow. These are, and again, I don't mean any disrespect by not being able to pronounce your names. It's just there's a lot of names. As a voice actor, I tend to want to take like 10 minutes to phonetically get it, and I just don't want to take that time to do it right now. But you know who you are, and I mean no disrespect by skimming over your last names. The film does not yet have a release date, but producers are aiming for March. It's unclear if there is a distributor on board or what platform the producers are aiming for. The Hollywood Reporter has reached out for additional details. Mickey's Mousetrap follows last year's horror film Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, so it was last year, which was made possible after the original Winnie the Pooh entered the public, right, okay. After the original Winnie the Pooh entered the public domain 2 years ago. Pooh's, also it would help too if I had my glasses on, wouldn't it? There we go. 2 years ago, Pooh's friend Tigger also enters the public domain this year. Well, you know he's coming for the sequel. Watch the trailer for Mickey's Mousetrap below. Okay, so now, also when you go over to Wikipedia, okay, for Mickey's Mousetrap, Wikipedia, tell you a little more about it. I don't know how many people went over to Wikipedia to check it out, but Wikipedia tells us a little more about it. So Wikipedia says Mickey's Mousetrap is an upcoming Canadian independent comedy slasher film directed by Jamie Bailey from a screenplay written by Simon Phillips. It is a horror reimagining to Walt Disney's 1928 animated short Steamboat Willie and stars the cast. Sophie, Nick, James, Demir, and Jesse and Mackenzie and Madeline and Ben, and you know who you are. It follows a group of friends. We know Mickey's Mouse, Mickey, it's a tongue twister. Mickey Mouse's rights had been owned by the Walt Disney Company since the mid-1920s, and while Disney retains exclusive rights to the depictions of the character from their own franchise, Mickey Steamboat Willie's version went into the public domain on January 1st. Okay. The premise, we know the premise. There's the cast, we know the cast. And I sincerely mean that. I mean no disrespect to the cast's last names. I just didn't want to take the time to try and get it right. And I figured that if I say it wrong, then, it doesn't do anybody any help. So this is interesting. So this is fun. I found this interesting as a Canadian. Principal photography began in Ottawa, Canada. Ottawa's only 4.5 hours up the road. Ottawa is where I went to high school. It's where I grew up from age 10 to age 20. That's where Bruce is from. He was born in Ottawa. I know Ottawa very, very well. Still have friends there, still have family there. So that's where it was shot. So it's it's a low budget Canadian independent film shot in Ottawa, or at least it began shooting in Ottawa. I don't know where it ended. Bailey began filming in June 2023 and wrapped production in September 2023, as he noted that the prior copyright status would only impact the film's release and not its production. Inspirations for the film include Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, a similar horror film whose original character also entered into the public domain, as well as the crew's love for Disney media. Okay, so according to Wikipedia, I don't see a budget, but this is a low-budget, independent short. So, okay, before I get into, let's tackle this. Let's tackle the first thing, which is, what do I think of this idea? Okay, well, there's two ways to look at this, right? The first thing is that you can look at this as, this is smart. This is a really smart. Now, I'm not saying the movie's going to be good. I'm just saying that the principle of it, this is a smart thing to do. Now, why would it be smart to do? Well, whether it's Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, whether it's, the Bambi one or the Peter Pan one that's in the works, whether it's this one, whatever the case is, these are indie filmmakers, and I'm sure of varying degrees of experience and varying degrees of, where they are in their careers. But nonetheless, these are not, this is not Paramount or Sony, right? These are low budget, independent films, feature films. Okay, great. And I think, I don't want to speak for them, but just, I think on a very surface level, this is low-hanging fruit. And it's low-hanging fruit because, they can use the already built-in pop culture zeitgeist status of the character to help gain the PR, basically, that they need to help drive their name and their product into the pop culture zeitgeist. I mean, these low-budget indie filmmakers from Canada have their film written about in the Hollywood Reporter, one of the most prestigious trade magazines, entertainment trade magazines in the world. So, right? So now I'm not saying that they are thinking of this consciously, and I'm not saying that they necessarily made this decision or are thinking about this, but I'm saying these are some of the things that exist. These are some of the reasons that exist. I'm not saying that James Bailey and his crew sat down and said, what we should do? We should just do this because it's easy and we're cheap and we don't. I'm not saying that. So if James ever, sees this, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, out of all the reasons why people do this, that's one of the reasons, is because you already have a built-in character that you don't have to do a lot with. You just have to put that character in a situation and a scenario that is the complete opposite and contrast to what we expect, right? And doing that is relatively easy, and it sells itself in a lot of ways. So a lot of the marketing, you still have to spend dollars to market the film, but a lot of the word of mouth and the marketing, kind of sells itself in a lot of ways because it's a shtick, it's a gimmick, right? And it's and at this point, it doesn't matter if the movie is good or not. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't at this point. Right? It's all about that awareness, because at the end of the day, if the movie cost $150,000 to make and there's enough awareness of it, thanks to the Hollywood Reporter, thanks to Bloody Disgusting, thanks to Variety, thanks to, wherever, enough people are going to watch it and they're going to see it. Even those that are like, I don't want to, you're going to watch it because you're going to be curious about it, or you're going to watch it because you have a YouTube channel where you review horror movies and you have to watch it because people are expecting you, and then they're going to ask you, hey, what's going on, all this kind of stuff, right? So that part of it, the whole idea of just this character that sells itself, even though you're turning it upside down and playing with it in a different way, is, smart. Hey, you know what I mean? Just that idea is, I say, right? Okay. Now let's put that over there, right? Okay, let's talk about quality, okay? Because a lot of people have reached out to me and said, when they watch the trailer to Mickey's Mousetrap, it looks infinitely more low budget or, amateur than something like It's Me, Billy does. Why is that? How is that? Well, I don't know. There's a lot of shades of gray. There's a lot of reasons, okay, why a certain movie will have a lower looking production value than something else, right? So I will just say this, that I watched the trailer to Mickey's Mousetrap, and it does look like a low budget B, C, a C, maybe B, more seaside, more on the seaside. I don't know what the litmus test now is for a B movie, but certainly it looks like in terms of the production value, in terms of audio, visual, it looks like a low budget indie horror movie from like the early 80s, and maybe it's designed that way, right? Not knocking it, I'm just saying, right? So, why is that? Well, there's a variety of reasons for that, right? There's a variety of reasons. When you are, okay, let's say you have $100,000, right? How you invest that $100,000 can determine that in a lot of ways. And I don't pretend to know how much Mickey's Mousetrap cost. I don't know the filmmakers. I don't know the actors. I'm sure they're awesome people. I'm just basing this on what I see and what people have asked me. They want my opinion on this. So if you have maybe it cost $400,000 to make. I don't know. Maybe it costs $30,000 to make. I have no idea. I'm just doing this as an example. Let's say we have $100,000. Well, how we choose to invest that $100,000 can make or break whether or not your film has a high level production value or a amateur looking production value. Because you can have $100,000, but you choose to invest that $100,000 not in hiring professionals, not in hiring, and I'm not saying these people, again, I have to preface this because this is the internet and people, again, we lack nuance and people like to take things. And so what you're saying is, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that, you can have $100,000 and where you choose to allocate that money can will eventually determine on how professional or not professional your film is, right? So if you take that $100,000 and you decide to use it by putting everybody up in the Hilton for, 6 months and you spend $50,000 doing that when you don't need to do that, well, there goes half your budget and it just to people because you want to put them up in the Hilton. Maybe you take, $30,000 and, you put it to something when you didn't need to put it to something like that. Maybe you're, having everybody transferred to set in a Suburban every day. And you're like, you don't need to do that. Or maybe you're flying everybody first class all over the country. Maybe you don't need to do that. I'm saying like I'm just giving examples, right? I'm going to the extreme. Where you choose to allocate the money can determine that. And so one of the reasons, I don't pretend to know what they did with the money they had. But one of the reasons why, you may look at a trailer like It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 or Chapter 2, or you look at the film and they look more studio than something like perhaps maybe like Mickey's Mousetrap, is because of how we chose to invest that money, where we chose to invest that money, with whom we chose to invest that money. Because remember, you can have $100,000 and spend it poorly, or you can have $100,000 and spend it wisely, right? So without knowing how much the money costs and without knowing, anything about these people, I really don't know. I mean, maybe they chose to just invest it in other things. That doesn't mean the movie's going to be bad, right? It just might, some of the audio in the trailer is a bit wonky. So, you question, did they have a boom operator on set? I imagine they probably did, but is this a professional or are they just capturing audio with a Zoom recorder, right? It's a Zoom, recorder and they have a little boom mic and it's just some guy who's just, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to a professional who's been doing this for decades, he's got the bag over his shoulder, he's got the mixer, he's got everything, he's got lavalier mics, he's got, wireless mics, he's got boom mics with, the windsock on it. He's decked out because he's been doing doing this for decades, and therefore he or she knows how to capture, real rich professional sound. I mean, that's something that we heavily invested in, right? And maybe another production that sounds a bit kind of like it kind of sounds like it's audio from the camera mic sound. You know what I mean? Maybe that's because they have their friend Bill who's just sitting there, and there's a variety of reasons why, and I don't know why. But does the audio sound a bit kind of like mic from the mic sound or microphone on the camera sound a couple of times? Yeah, no, it does. But that doesn't mean the movie's going to be bad, right? But so without knowing those details, I just wanted to answer that because people have been asking me, why is that? It's all about how much money you have and where you choose to invest that money, right? And that's what it comes down to, at the end of the day. Looking at the IMDb page, or the Wikipedia page, I should say, the director, his name is, Jamie Bailey. Jamie Bailey directed the film. He is also the cinematographer, and he's also the editor. So, which is pretty cool. Now, but that's a lot of hats, right? That's a lot of hats, right? He's the director. He's the director. He's the producer. He's the cinematographer. He's the editor. That's a lot of hats. Now, when you don't have a lot of money, sometimes you got to do that, right? So my hat goes off to him, no pun intended, for actually, taking on all that, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I mean, I can't even imagine also being the DP on Billy and directing it. Like it'd be insane. Now their first assistant camera is also their key grip. So that goes to show you, right? Like it's ultimate low budget, right? And they, so, you don't ever have, usually, unless I guess you're really low budget, have your first assistant camera as also your key grip. Those are two completely different jobs that require two completely different skill sets, that require two completely different levels of attention to detail. So it's completely different. They're not even remotely related. And so again, right, without knowing those details, I'm not really sure. But I can tell you that it will come down to how much money you have and how you choose to invest that money. And that's why, certain pictures will look the way that they do over others, right? Okay, so now that that's out of the way, is this a good thing? Well, I mean, if it continues to make money, then people will continue to go see it. And I think people are curious enough that they will watch it, regardless of whether it's bad or not. I think Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey Part 2 is going to do very well because people want to see it. They want to see it, and maybe it'll be better. As far as I know, the first Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, like I said, had a $100,000 budget, and it made like $5-6 million. So now I would imagine that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, I believe has a bigger budget. From what I was reading online, they have a bigger budget. I don't know how much bigger, but let's say now they have a $750,000 budget, let's say. Well, going from maybe it's over $1 million, who knows? But going from $100,000 to, let's say, $1 million, let's just say $1 million. Well, that's a big increase. But how do you choose to invest that? Right? So from what I was reading about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, they are amping up the kills and they are amping up the gore. Okay, well, that's definitely an area where they are choosing to invest. And I believe one of their effects artists has worked on some major Hollywood films. So they are choosing to invest in that way, right? I'm not saying that's all they're doing. I'm just saying that's one of the areas that they're doing. So will the production value of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 look a higher quality than Part 1? I don't know. We'll soon find out. It's likely that the kills will be higher production value and more intense, and maybe the gore. And look, I mean, it's not. and people will watch it. People will watch it because the first one was such a, it's the gimmick. It's the shtick. If Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was just not Winnie the Pooh, and it was just a regular low budget, paint by numbers, run of the mill slasher movie, with just a random, nondescript villain, then nobody would have cared about it. It would have come and gone, and it wouldn't have got any press. It gets the press it does because of the gimmick, because of the shtick, and the filmmakers are using that to their advantage. This is show business, folks. It's cutthroat. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and there's part of me that's like, hey, I mean, it's not my style. If that's what you're asking, would I want to do this? No. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Dave, we're going to pay you to shoot this movie. It's the Steamboat Willie, and we're gonna direct this movie or whatever. My first thought would be, well, what's the story? How much are you gonna pay me? What's the budget? I might consider it, right? Because I'm in a position myself where, yes, I've spent many years in the entertainment industry and I've established myself as a voice actor, but as a filmmaker, finally, in my 40s, I'm now trying to make a real go at it. So if somebody presented me that opportunity, I'm not saying I would take it, but I'm saying I would look it over and I'd go, okay, well, what is this? Is this something I want to do? Is this something, because I don't have any interest, I'll be honest with you, with the amount of work that Bruce and I have put into both It's Me, Billy 1 and 2, delivering a professional product, studio quality from top to bottom. We worked really hard to deliver a professional product that you look at, and one of the number one things people often say about our films is it doesn't look like a fan film because of the stigma, right? You expect more amateur, kind of home movie stuff, and that's not what we did, right? We delivered a professional film, and so now I don't. If I was ever offered a job like that, my first thought would be, well, I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to deliver something that looks like a home movie. I want to continue to move up, and keep going that way. So, I would be concerned about the budget and, how is the budget being allocated? Because if I'm just the director, not a producer, I have no say over that. I can make recommendations and suggestions, and depending on my relationship with the said producer or producers, I might be able to have sway. But at the end of the day, if I'm just a hired hand and just a hired director, at the end of the day, I have to, kind of deal with the cards I've been dealt. So, I would look at that kind of thing and be like, or maybe it's something fantastic. You got a $5 million budget, and we're taking it seriously, and it's A24, and whatever, right? As if, put me in there, sure. Not yet, maybe one day, but not yet. But you know what I'm saying, right? And so that's where I do understand. Like I get it. When you're an indie filmmaker and you're trying to make a name for yourself, and you're trying to, go above and beyond and put your head up amongst all the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of other filmmakers in your position doing the exact same thing, and you want to stand out, this is an easy way to do it. It's a very easy way to do it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the movie's good or not. It's going to make some money, especially if the budget's low, and the shtick's going to carry it. The shtick and the gimmick is going to carry it, right? That's the way it is. And so, I get it. But is there long-term in this? Probably not. I think it's a fad, and I think it will dry out, I think. My only thing would be, though, that, I look at something like this and I see a real opportunity. Like, why not take it seriously? Why not seek funding? Why not try to get, $5 million bucks? And that doesn't mean you have to get $5 million bucks from the same place, although that means you might have, bring on several producers and executive producers and financiers and all that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be cheap. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to look and sound like some of these things do. It doesn't have to be that way. It's only that way because of because of the low budget that they may have and where they are choosing to allocate that money, and with whom. And so, at the end of the day, I mean, if it was me, I mean, there is no reason, because Steamboat Willie, that, Mickey Mouse, and a lot of these Disney characters, not the ones we know and love, but the, certain ones, right, are in the public domain. There is no reason. I mean, there's no threshold of budget, It's not like there's a rule that says, hey, you can use this, but you can only use it if you only have 150,000. Not at all. You can have 150 million if you wanted to, if somebody wanted to invest in it, right? So I'd be curious to see something that was really smartly written, a very smart horror film, not so like a film that you watch that is like, yeah, the gimmick and the shtick, I get it, but damn, that was really good. It was smartly written, terrifically acted, really scary, and not leaning so much into the tropes and into the kind of just the easy tropes and the easy sort of, what am I trying to say? Just kind of the low-hanging fruit of the slasher subgenre. To make us look, a slasher film is really easy, right? You get a bunch of people together in a location and you kill them one by one. And you figure out, if you can, depending if your budget will allow, ingenious ways or cool ways to die. And sometimes you might have to kill them off screen. Sometimes you can kill them on screen. It all depends. But at the end of the day, that's what a slasher movie is. But I don't think it has to be that. And I'm not saying it needs to be as complicated or as cerebral as, as something from A24. But if you've got the money, invest it wisely, and deliver, surprise people. Because right now, and this is not a knock on the filmmakers, but right now, nobody is excited about Mickey's Mousetrap because it looks like a great movie or it has real potential. If they're interested, it's just like, oh, let's check this out again, right? And again, I'm not knocking the filmmakers, even though it might sound like I am. That's not what I'm doing. People have asked me I didn't even know about it until people started to, ask me about it. People asked my thoughts. These are my thoughts. But to be fair, maybe James Bailey, they're hoping that this will be another repeat of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, so they get as much money together as they can and shout at, like, sincerely. I mean, they're busting their ass. They're doing what they can. They saw an opportunity where there wasn't any, and they got something together. They made a movie. They completed it. And it's not like it looks like, it doesn't look like a home movie. It's not like I watch, I'm like, oh my God, this looks like it was shot on somebody's camcorder from 1986. No, not at all. Not at all. It looks competently made, for sure. But there's just certain things in terms of the production value, right? In terms of the audio, in terms of the acting, certain things, maybe the lighting, it just kind of looks a little more lower tier, let's say, right? But at the end of the day, if this, I tell you, let's say this thing cost $100,000, let's say. If this thing makes $7 million, it depends on what the distribution is. Blood and Honey was distributed in the States. In the theater, and it was a U.S. film. Mickey's Mousetrap is a Canadian film, and so they're going to probably try to seek distribution in the U.S. Maybe they'll be able to get it released in theaters. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I haven't heard anything, and this thing's supposed to be released in March. So maybe not. Maybe it'll just go to PVOD. You can rent it from YouTube or something, or maybe it'll have like a little online PVOD sort of thing. And then by the summertime, it's picked up by Netflix and it's put in, on their, who knows, right? But if they make money from this, if they do, then it would not surprise me at all if you see them do a sequel, because now, and it depends how much it does make, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I would do. It's not something that I would do. You know what I mean? On my own is what I'm saying. Like I wouldn't sit down with Bruce and say, hey, Steamboat Willie's in the public domain. Let's do a Mickey Mouse horror movie. He would look at me and be like, why? Like, nah, let's just come up with our own shit. Right. And so that's sort of, I don't really feel like doing that. Now, again, somebody watching this after the fact may say, well, you just did a Black Christmas fan film. So what do you mean you want to do your own shit? Okay, but it's important to understand there's a specific reason why Bruce and I decided to do a Black Christmas tribute fan film. Notice we didn't do Halloween, we didn't do Elm Street, we didn't do Friday the 13th, we didn't do Child's Play, we chose something that was not the low-hanging fruit, that is not going to rack up 500 million views in its sleep just because of the IP. We chose to do this because it is a Canadian film that we feel doesn't get enough love. We're Canadian filmmakers from Toronto, where Black Christmas was filmed and shot. And we felt who better to do it than two Canadian filmmakers from Toronto. It's a tribute film. It's a fan film, yes, because we don't own the IP, but at the end of the day, it's a tribute film. And that's why we chose to do it. It wasn't because we're heavily invested in making fan films. It was because we wanted to do this to, cut our teeth and showcase what we can do and play in this world and bring more awareness to, Black Christmas. And again, whether you like the original Black Christmas or not, is irrelevant. It is one of the most influential and important horror films in history. There's a lot of movies that are like that I don't particularly like either, but I recognize their cultural significance. And, but anyway, so that's what that was for us. So, but we have no desire to spend the rest of our lives making fan films. I mean, you can't make any money off of them, right? So, it would be nice to get paid and to have a big budget and we can actually make money and get distribution and, have it on Netflix or, wherever, right? So that's what, what we want to do. And because we've delivered a certain level of quality now, we want to stay there. We don't want to, go backwards. Not that you have to go backwards. I'm just saying that we want to continue moving forward. And so I don't see a scenario for us where we would want to dive into the Mickey Mouse, Peter Pan kind of thing. Again, if a producer came to me or to Bruce or to us and was like, hey, we have a $5 million budget. This is the story. Here's the opportunity. This is the distributor that's interested. We want you to do it. Well, of course you have that conversation. Of course you do, right? But on our own, no, I just don't see it. I'm not invested in that. It's just not the way that I particularly want to cut my teeth and make try to get my inroad. It's just not something that I want to do, but different strokes for different folks. It's not that it's wrong if you choose to do that. It's just I don't already have the built-in interest to play with pre-established characters and turn them into horror villains. It's just not really my thing. It's like crossovers, right? Chucky versus, Pinhead and Michael versus Jason. I'm just not, hey, if somebody came to me and said, Dave, we want you to direct a Michael versus Pinhead movie. We're going to pay you, $500,000. We got a this, you're going to get a box office, residual. We got to do, well, that's a conversation you have, right? That's a conversation you have. But on my own, would I write it? Would I seek it out? Would I spend, 3 years trying to get it made? No, absolutely not. So yeah, anyways, that's how I feel about this. I see why people, I say the filmmakers, I see why this is becoming a trend. I see it. It's and again, I say this not as disrespect. I don't know any of the filmmakers. So I don't say this as disrespect. They would probably agree with me. If we're looking at things objectively, they would probably agree with me, right? It's low-hanging fruit because the gimmick and the shtick is a popular pop culture zeitgeist character that can help sell itself. And so, it's smart business. Again, that doesn't mean the product's going to be good, but certainly, gaining interest and getting major outlets to write about it. And, I think on IMDb, Mickey's Mousetrap right now, on IMDb right now in popularity is sitting at number 226. 226. That's insane. That's crazy. That's like, it's 226 out of 1,924,888. Holy shit. That's insane. That's insanely popular. Insanely popular. Right? So, I get it. I get it, right? And listen, I wish them the best of luck. Sincerely, I mean that. I hope, it's not my kind of thing, but I hope the movie's good. And again, just because the movie looks like it has, not studio production value, or the audio's a bit off, or whatever the case is, that doesn't mean in and of itself that the movie itself is going to be awful. Right? The story's not going to make any sense. Oh, the acting's bad. Oh, the terrible cuts. Oh, the kills. It was just a bad movie. It was a bad movie. That doesn't mean that at all. And it doesn't. It doesn't. Usually when you see films that have lower production value, they can be more difficult to get into them emotionally and get emotionally invested into them because they're not as polished, right? And so therefore some of the flaws in the acting and the editing and the sound can stand out, right? And can kind of take you out of it. But that isn't necessarily the case here. We've seen one trailer. The movie doesn't release till March. Maybe they're fine tweaking and tuning and polishing right now, to get it as polished as they possibly can. And maybe it'll release and you'll watch it and you'll be like, it's all right. You know what I mean? But you also have to watch it within its context, right? You have to watch it within its context, right? It's a low budget horror comedy. It's an independent, low budget horror comedy from indie filmmakers, right? So, it is what it is. And I think that because they're using the Mickey Mouse character, an illusion can created that the film, it should be bigger and more polished than what it is. And I think there's an avenue for that. I actually wouldn't mind seeing that. I think that would be kind of cool. Now, there's another horror film from the producers of Terrifier 2. I don't think it has a name yet, but there's a poster, and you see the back of this little kind of steamboat Willie. He's got a knife in his hand, and he's looking at the skyline of New York, right? And it says, from the producers of Terrifier 2 and The Mean One. And so I didn't see The Mean One. I don't know if that was any good or not. I didn't see it, but the director of The Mean One is directing this one as well. And again, I don't think it has a name yet. But that's another one that, another steamboat, Willie type of horror movie. Now, if it's from the producers of Terrifier 2, this could be a higher production value film, right? Where it doesn't, the low production value doesn't necessarily take you out of it. You can suspend your, disbelief a lot easier, and therefore you can, stay emotionally invested in the film. I would imagine that that would be the case here, although I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know how far along they are. I don't know when they plan on filming, if they're in development or pre-production. I have no idea. But I wish them the best of luck too. I do. It's low-hanging fruit, but if you can write a story that is actually fun, and I don't mean comedy fun, but I mean like the fun, that's good. It's got a good hook. It's got a good angle. Right? It's smart, it's scary, and you walk away from it going, wow, you know what? That was actually really good. And I wasn't expecting, but it was actually really good. Because just because you're using the Steamboat Willie character doesn't mean that you've got to somehow deliver something that's subpar. You can deliver something that's extremely polished, studio quality work if you have the money and you know where to allocate that money and hire the right people. You can absolutely do that. And maybe this other version will be that. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Or maybe there'll be another one. Maybe Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey will be that. Or maybe the Bambi the Reckoning will be that. Or Peter, I have no idea. But yes, this is a fad, and it's going to be here for a little bit because I think other indie filmmakers are now looking up online, public domain, when will certain characters, not just Disney, but maybe Looney Tunes or some other fairy tales and things like that. No doubt there are a lot of filmmakers right now that are looking that up on Google to see what is going to be in the public domain, because they too want to see if they can capitalize on it. And whether they realize this consciously or not, it's true that when you have, again, I'll just end here and we'll go on to the chat room. When you have an already established, pop culture zeitgeist character that is beloved by millions of people around the world, half your work is done for you. And so I do understand why there's a lot of indie filmmakers out there that want to get, I'm not one of them, but I can intellectualize and I can look at it from a certain point of view and say, I understand why a lot of people want to see if they can get on that train, because the marketing, again, you still have to spend money to market your movie, obviously, but, you know, I mean, look, you know, right? I mean, the trailer, the Hollywood Reporter picked up that trailer for Mickey's Mousetrap, right? So, I mean, it sells itself in a lot of ways. And if you can make it good, it doesn't have to be phenomenal. It doesn't have to be the greatest. Oh my God. It just has to be pretty good. That was pretty good. It just has to be pretty good. Not even good, pretty good. It has to, because I think the expectations for these kinds of movies are so low that it doesn't have to be the greatest thing since, you know, whatever, The Shining. I mean, it just has to be pretty good. That was pretty good. It was like a 6 out of 10. That was pretty good. You know, 6.5 out of 10. It was pretty good. That's all it's got to be, you know, at the end of the day, right? But I think usually critics are really hard on these kinds of movies because of the shticky sort of I don't want to say cheating. It's not cheating, but there's a stigma, right? You're like you're taking the easy way out. You know, it's like, you're just using all the, let's do a Fred Flintstone one. Let's do a Barney Rubble one. They're not in the public domain yet, but you know what I mean? Let's do Bugs Bunny. Let's do Big Bird. Let's do Oscar the Grouch. And it's like, well, hang on a sec here. Like, you're already like, you know, what are you doing, right? So I think there is a stigma around these films that, yeah, I mean, obviously it feels like, you know, like it's cheating, even though, you know, hey, it's there. I'm not cheating. It's in the public domain. I can do whatever I want. And so I try to take more of as a filmmaker myself, I try to take a balanced approach to looking at this, because you can look at this and go, it's garbage. It's fucking bullshit. That's nonsense bullshit. And I get it. I understand it. But then I look at it from the other side of the coin and I'm like, well, I wouldn't want to invest my time into writing a story, making a movie, and you know, like this. I would rather do the other, you know, ideas that I have currently right now that don't have anything to do with, you know, with that kind of stuff. That's what I'm excited about. But I do understand, you know, if you're trying to make it in this business as a filmmaker and you're looking for something to help you stand out, this is something that can do that. For better or worse, it's something that can do it. So, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting. But do I think it's a fad? Yes, I do. How long will the fad continue? I don't know. I think if the movies continue to be at a certain level in terms of production value, and they continue to be just really B level, even C level, kind of just campy, you know, bottom of the Walmart barrel. And again, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying if these movies continue to be B, C level type movies, then I don't think the fad will last too much longer. But if the one from, you know, the guys from Terrifier, if they deliver something that's higher production value and makes a boatload of money, and some studios see, I mean, who knows where it could go. But I also think there's a lot of studios that don't want to touch it either. You know, they don't want to touch all this pre-existing stuff. So that's why you see a lot of the independent production companies taking advantage of it, because they want to make a name for themselves. And it's not easy. Making movies is not easy. I'm just saying that you already have a shtick and a gimmick established that can get you press. And so, you know, half your battle is sort of already made for you right there. But it's interesting. It's interesting. But yeah, no, I do think it's a fad, and I don't think it's going to last forever at all. Let's go to the chat room and see what you are all saying. So I do know that there were a couple super chats that came in. Let me get these super chats. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh. It says, happy last day of filming. It's me, Billy, this weekend. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, we're hoping that we will be able to hang on a sec here. Okay, I'll read that a little later. I'm hoping we will be able to, there's a snowstorm that's going to be coming in here tomorrow night. Now, we're not shooting until Saturday, so I'm hoping that the snowstorm doesn't cause any further delays. My God, it's not one thing or it's another. But yes, we are scheduled to shoot the last scene of It's Me, Billy Chapter 2 this Saturday. So we're very excited to get that finally done. Amaducia sends in $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, hey, Dave, just want to say good luck with the filming this Saturday. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Hey, you guys remembered. Yeah. Well, again, fingers crossed we don't have to reschedule because of any bad weather. Lee the Machine Bowers. Lee. Must be payday. Lee sends in an extremely generous super chat of $49.99. Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate that. Says, for the channel, happy Thursday, Dave. Sadly, I'm under the weather, trying to stay positive. Hopefully I feel better. No Disney character shouldn't be in any horror movie. First of all, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, like, you know what? There's a lot of people out there that don't like the idea at all. And I can understand that. Like I said, it's not something that I would want to invest my time in. The only time that I would ever entertain being involved in a movie like that is if somebody came to me with money, right? So there was already a story, there was already money, they wanted me to direct it, they might have, distribution already lined up, right? Because then I see maybe, but I would never want to invest. Like if a fellow filmmaker came to me and said, hey, Dave, I think we should write a, I don't know, a goofy movie. I'm not saying he's in the public domain yet. I don't think he is. But you know what I mean, right? We want, a goofy horror movie. It's like, I just don't want to invest my time and energy. I don't want to do that. I just have no interest in doing that. But good luck. But I can understand the appeal to a lot of indie filmmakers, for sure. Let me see here. The other super chat from Frank. Hey, Frank, Frank the Tank. What's going on? Frank sends in $10. Thanks, Frank. I appreciate that. Says, Dave, I just got done cleaning the shit out of Blum's pool after the night swim, and he told me that he's making a movie based on Frosted Flakes' Tony the Tiger, who kills people after contracting rabies. Hey, there's another one right there. They're great. There's another one right there. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. Tony the Tiger. Yeah. You know what? I hope it, characters wind up in public domain at different times, right? But, yeah, I hope that's not a situation where that actually happens. Yeah, it's like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record here and beat a dead horse, but I think the only way that these films, these shtick Disney, let's imagine, this character, but only evil. And again, there's a lot of characters that are in the public domain. I'm talking about the Disney. See, it works because Disney has that family, love, peace, happiness, pure, family, rated, thing, right? So it's the dichotomy. It's not the dichotomy, but the contrast, right? It's the polar opposite, right? And it's like, let's take a character, taking a character that was already evil that winds up in the public domain and then doing something evil, you'd have to make them good then, right? I get it, but it's the only way that this is going to last, and actually become, maybe it's even its own like tiny little subgenre. The movies have to be good, and they have to be higher production value. I don't mean they have to be Marvel production value, but they have to be higher production value. They've got to be at minimum like what we're delivering with It's Me, Billy 1 and 2, what Vince, has done with the Never Hike Alone film, Cecil. You know what I'm saying? They have to be high production value. They don't have to look like they have, $80 million, but they have to be like, yeah, this looks legit. This looks like a legit movie I would watch on, you know what I mean? And they have to be good. Because if they're good, but low production value, that's going to be tricky to sustain that. And if they're crappy and high production value, well, that's not going to work either. So they and again, they don't have to be great. They just have to be pretty good. They just have to be, that was fun. That actually wasn't bad. Like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. You know what I'm saying? Like in the 50s on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Like, and then the average score is like a 6 out of, something like that. It's got to be there for it to have any sort of staying power. Because if every time one of these things is released, it's winding up with like 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? And just lambasted across the board, well, then nobody's going to want to make them. Unless they continue to make money. And then I guess maybe they will. I don't know. It's crazy stuff. Let's see. What else we got going here? Member Super Chat comes in from where Nomad has gone before, but a member for 5 months. Thank you very much. And says, another Canadian film I liked was The Changeling with George C. Scott. I know you've been busy, but have you and your lady watched The Night of the Hunter yet? No, we have not. Not yet. George C. Scott. The Changeling is great. That's a great movie. Yeah, that's a Canadian horror film. I believe it was shot in part in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. But 1980, I think that is. I actually saw George C. Scott's grave. Was it his grave or was Jack Lemmon's grave? Might have been Jack Lemmon's grave, now that I think about it. Anyway, that's a great movie. That's a great movie for sure. I haven't seen it in years. I got to watch about it. I got to watch it and maybe talk about it. That's really great. I'm just going to scroll back here and see going on. Geeked Out Turtle Fan says, I'm waiting for the biography starring Adam Sandler. You're waiting for the Dave McRae biography starring Adam Sandler? Well, Adam Sandler and I don't look anything alike. So, but hey, if they ever wanted to do a biography on me and starring Adam Sandler, sure, why not? Not that you have to look exactly like the person, but, some sense of a resemblance is often appreciated. Let me see here. Let me scroll back. Tyler Adams says, I think indie filmmakers need to check themselves and put a lot more effort into the scripts. Hire a screenwriter. Yeah, I think there's some truth to be said, in that. I think screenwriting is tough. It's difficult. Writing is tough. There's no doubt about it. And that's, again, it's a discipline. It's a certain talent that not everybody has. But I think, with horror movies especially, when it comes to low budget horror movies, they don't have to be thespians. They don't have to be, the writing doesn't have to be great, right? Especially when you're doing a slasher movie. Slasher movies are some of the easiest movies to write. Now, you can make them more cerebral. You can give more layers if you want. But generally speaking, slasher movies are very easy to write. Because like I said, you just need, what is the basis of a slasher movie? Well, it's generally it's a group of people in a location who are stalked by a masked killer. Generally, he or she is masked, and the killer is using bladed tools, right? And generally, you usually have a final girl of some sort, but not always. So, those things are not hard to come up with. And then you just have to fill in the gaps in between the opening and the beginning. Why are they there? What's the motivation that brought them together? Who's the killer? What's their relationship to the rest of the cast? And, and if you have a great location, especially with low budget horror, location. If you have a great location, that can sell itself as well. And so, I agree in principle what you're saying, but I don't think it goes across the board. I don't think the Terrifier scripts are particularly great. I think I think Damien Leone has, especially the first one, there wasn't a lot to it, right? And then the second one, he's added more layers and complexities and backstory and that kind of stuff, which is interesting and fun. And we'll see what he does with Terrifier 3. Now, when I say I don't think they're great, I'm not saying they're garbage. I just mean I don't think they are. They're not cerebral. They're not like, Academy Award winning stuff. What he's done is he's taken the first one and he's added more to it now because he's had more time. He's apparently done that with 3. So I think that's, we'll see what he does with 3. But slasher movies in general are not, and they actually, a slasher movie you hinder a slasher movie if you try to be more cerebral or try to be more layered or try to be more philosophical. And I mean like not a little bit. I just mean there's nothing wrong with adding a little bit of layer, but I mean like you try to make it out to be something more than what it actually is. And usually fans can see right through that and they get it, they see it, all that kind of stuff. So, but having said that, at the same time, and this goes back to some of the things that I've been saying for a long time now, which is, sometimes people will ask me, do you think we will ever have another Jason, Freddy, Michael? Well, my answer is, to that is always the same. Horror has changed. Horror has changed. Back in the day, look at Elm Street and Friday the 13th. And those were major theatrical releases. If those movies came out today, they would be buried on Netflix in the, what the hell is this, section, right? We've come such a long way in terms of even the quality of horror and what studios will want to release or what streaming services will want to pick up. And so, you look at Thanksgiving, which was a major theatrical release, right? That's good, right? I even said months ago when Thanksgiving, when the trailer dropped, I said that for all of you, now whether you like Thanksgiving or not, okay, fine. But I even said that Thanksgiving, you can fact check me on this because I said this months and months and months ago. Whenever the trailer dropped in the summer or whatever it was, I said this, for all of you wanting a new slasher villain, this is your best opportunity. This is your best bet right here. In terms of mainstream pop culture, right? Now there's Art the Clown, okay? But he's still not mainstream yet. He's knocking on the pop culture door, right? We'll see how Terrifier 3 does. It's going to get a larger release. It's probably going to make a lot of money. And Terrifier 3 might be the film that puts Art the Clown into the zeitgeist. But we'll see, right? We don't know. But Thanksgiving was your best bet on that. That not everybody liked it. Some people did, some people didn't. But horror has changed a lot. And I just think that it's not as like the writing has to be there, and that is true. But it depends on it just depends on the film. It depends on the subject matter. It depends on, is this specifically designed to be this way or not? Every filmmaker should, if you are a writer, director, you should, and you want to do a low budget horror movie, you should be able to come up with a low budget horror movie that is well written, right? And when I say well written or written well, I just simply mean that, it's not campy. There's not glaring plot holes, and to be simple with it. I think a lot of first time or independent filmmakers, and again, when I say indie filmmakers, okay, and this is something I got to say as well, because I think this gets lost in the translation. Independent movie or indie filmmaker doesn't necessarily mean amateur home movie filmmaker. Okay. All an independent film is a film that is outside of the studio system. It's not distributed by the major studios. It doesn't have a major theatrical release when it's first, brought to market, whether that's through film festivals or what have you. Now, an independent film can get a major theatrical release by a studio because it premieres at South by Southwest. I think that's it. North by Northwest, is it South by? Yeah, I think that's it. Or it premieres at TIFF or, wherever. And then, the studios see it. And they're like, well, I think we can make a little money off of this. So they pick it up for a major theatrical. That happens all the time. But all independent filmmaker means, generally speaking, although there is a vast spectrum of quality when we talk about indie filmmakers, and levels of experience, I should say. But an indie film just means that it's not a film that is picked up by, it's not a film that was distributed or produced by a major studio. The original Halloween was an indie film, right? The original Black Christmas was an indie film. There's a lot of high production value, studio quality, professionally produced, looks totally pro indie films, right? So, but I think for a lot of indie filmmakers, to your point, Tyler, I think it was just you said that, right? That I think they tend to overwrite and they have, they're very ambitious. And so therefore their vision is ambitious and the writing suffers because they don't necessarily, they may not necessarily be bad writers, but they don't have the access to the resources to properly fulfill the ambitious vision that they have. So therefore then things begin to suffer. And so that's one thing that, we have to keep in mind as well. But there's so many different factors, you know what I mean? Like that's how I always like to tackle discussions like this, because generally speaking online, people like to black and white things because it's very easy for them. We live in a fast world. People don't like to think. People don't like to process. People don't like to look at things objectively and really understand that there's a lot of nuance. And there is a lot of nuance, right? There's a lot of reasons and a lot of variables at play. And that's how I always like to tackle things. I've been, accused of playing both sides and you just want to play, both sides. And that's not true at all. And if you follow me for any length of time, that's not true. There's a lot of things I will take a hard stance on one side or another. But when it's a topic like this, there is a lot of nuance, and I can see the value in it. And I don't want to speak for the indie filmmakers that are doing these films, but, it's an informed opinion that I think, it's safe to say that there is an attractive, viable thing about wanting to do a movie like this because the IP and the gimmick and the shtick helps you so much. It helps get your name in the Hollywood Reporter. You know what I mean? So I mean it's attractive. Now you just got to make sure the movie's pretty good. It doesn't have to be fucking great. It just has to be pretty good. You know what I mean? What I don't like is when indie filmmakers will get, say, $100,000 and then just lean on, well, it's Mickey Mouse. It's going to sell himself. Oh, we don't have to do much, guys. We don't have to hire that. We don't have to do this. We don't have to hire him. We're not going to hire him. Fuck, he charges $900 a day. We're not hiring him. We don't need to. No, we have to. It's Mickey Mouse. I'll just sell it stuff. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not to be taken seriously. Don't not take it seriously. Don't worry about it. And so they don't put the proper effort and time into creating, again, nobody's expecting The Shining. If it ends up being The Shining, great. But nobody's just something that was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was fun. That was way better than I expected. That actually was all right. That was all right. That was all right. At least strive for that, right? At least strive for that. But when no effort or very little effort is put in, you can tell. And that's where people get sort of, their knickers in a twist, right? All right. Josh McKenna sends in another $9.99. Thank you, Josh. It says, I want an evil slasher Barbie movie. Hey, I mean, you know what? Maybe, what's her face? Maybe Margot Robbie will, I don't think Barbie's in the public domain, but hey, you never know. That'd be interesting, Josh. That would be interesting. Michael Thorne sends in $9.99 and says, you should do scene film breakdowns like you did with I See You and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Maybe with newer stuff you've enjoyed like The Ritual. Yeah, that's a great idea, Michael. I would love to talk about The Ritual on this channel in that way. It's always funny, right? Because it's always an interesting balance because I'm not a movie reviewer, right? There isn't already that thing where I'm going to talk about the latest and greatest and my views are going to be there no matter what. So I'm more of like on YouTube, not in my day-to-day, life, but my job on YouTube is more punditry, right? More just, talking about movies and giving my thoughts. And if I didn't spring onto the scene as, not that I have any regrets, but if I didn't spring onto the scene as one of the, big Halloween guys, and I sprung onto the scene doing that right from the get-go, then I think there'd be more interest in it. Not that there's any interest in it, but I always have to be mindful of, okay, is this something that I'm interested in? Is it something that my viewers are interested in? And is it going to get at least a few thousand views, right? Because if it's only going to get a few hundred views, then why am I wasting my time, right? And, I'm a big channel in the space, obviously, but I'm still a relatively small channel in terms of YouTube, finally knocking on 30,000. I'd probably be at like 70 or 80 by now if I actually was a reviewer. Or I did more content, and maybe less live streams. But anyway, I always want to make sure that there's interest there, right? Because if I'm not talking Halloween, the interest drops. And then it kind of drops down to about, a lot of people check out when I'm not talking Halloween. There's a lot of people that when I will start talking Halloween, people will tune in and be like, oh, dude, hey, what's going on, man? Haven't checked in a while. It's been like a year. And it's like, well, I've been here. I've been uploading. Yeah, I've just been so busy. Like, nah, maybe. But you also see me uploading stuff you're just not in. And not that everybody needs to watch everything, right? But it's always that balance. I want to make sure that I'm doing something that I'm interested in and that is going to get, people interested. Because I remember when I did a McRae Live where I was talking about cinematic language, which I think is, I don't know, I find this really cool, right? Understanding why we feel certain things with movies, how to read movies, how to pick up on things, symbolism, cinematic language. I find that interesting. And I'm like, I think my viewers would find that interesting. And I remember doing a McRae Live on that. And there were a few people in the chat going, oh, this is boring. It's boring. And I lost it on them. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not going to repeat what I said, but I fucking lost it on them. I was like, fuck, we talk Halloween all the fucking time. You want to know, you want to learn something? You want to learn something? Anyway, they weren't happy about that. Probably never tuned in again. But so I always got to make sure, that it's that balance. Do you know what I mean? And because there's a lot of things that I'm interested in that I want to talk about, but true crime or but I have to be mindful as well that what is the identity of the channel? It's a movie channel, and more specifically, it's a horror movie channel, right? So I think as long as I'm talking horror movies and I'm not deviating too far, that doesn't mean I can't do a true crime once in a while, but as long as I don't start doing that on the regular. And alienating those who have come to me for horror content, then I think that's fine. But I always have to be careful because I have a broad interest, in terms of there's a lot of things that I'm interested in. It's not just Halloween. You know what I mean? And we can only talk about it so much. And when there's no news to talk about in regards to Halloween, then, I like to wait for something a little juicy. But the ritual, Michael, yeah. I'm glad you like those. I'm glad you like those scene breakdowns, And I did that with Halloween, right? There's a couple of them that I was like, have you ever noticed? There's a couple of them in Halloween 4. Yeah, I'd like to do them again, for sure. For sure I would, for sure. And the ritual is a good one. Michael Goodman, member for 5 months. Thank you, Michael. Sends in a member chat. Says, hey, Dave, I joined your channel because of Halloween and stuck around because I just love you, man. Well, thank you, Mendel. Thank you, Mendel. I appreciate. Oh, listen, I'm under no delusions that 99% of you all tuned in and subscribe because of Halloween. And that's great. And I love talking Halloween for sure. But I like talking about other things too. Let me see here. We got, I want to get to non-super chats. Another super chat came in from Brandon Collins. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that. Sends in $5. Says, raise a glass to Coppola because he's about to drop a self-financed $120 million independent film this year. He sold his winery to do it. Respect. Yes. I read about that. And who was there was some controversy. There was some controversy on that set as well, wasn't there? With an actor or something, or somebody was fired because something I can't remember, but I remember reading about this. But yeah, well, let's hope it's good. Let's hope that he makes his money back, and or he makes some money at the very $120 million self-finance. But you know what? He's at a stage in his life now where he doesn't care. What is he? 80? It's got to be something like that. In his 80s, at least. He doesn't care anymore. You know, he figures, why not? I got nothing to lose. I'm 80 something years old. What am I hanging on to this for? He's rich beyond belief. He'll take some of this money and give it to his kids. His kids are older than me. His kids are probably in their 60s. But I have heard about this, and yeah, that's wild. That's pretty wild. Well, weren't the Star Wars prequels self-financed as well? Didn't George Lucas self-finance those? I stand to be corrected. I stand to be corrected. Maybe not. Maybe not. There was something with Star Wars. Self-distributed? With the help of 20th Century Fox? There was something like that. I can't remember now. No, I don't think he would have would he have? Well, he could have. I mean, he's worth over like $5 billion. Maybe he did. Anyway, there's something like that. That's what it was, Brandon. Yes, I think his production designer quit. Yes, that's what it was. Yes, yeah. I remember hearing about this like a year or so ago, and I was like, woo, getting crazy. Listen, making movies is a high stressful situation. And there's a lot of stress and a lot of butting of egos and butting of different departments and a lot of he said, she said, and a lot of things that people get right and things that people get wrong. And making movies is tough. And you just hope that you, at the end of the day, work with people who you have immense respect for, who understand, you know, that everybody is working hard and trying to make the best thing that you can possibly make. And hopefully at the end of the day that, you know, will triumph over any sort of animosity that may arise during the filming of a movie. But yeah. Brandon says, yeah, he 100% financed them himself. 20th Century Fox paid for the licensing fee to distribute. That's what I thought. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Because those were like, what, $100 million movies, I think? The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. If not, they were very close. It was a different time. I'm pretty sure they were well over that, actually. Yeah, wild stuff. I wonder why. Well, I guess he self-financed so he could have creative control, because I don't think he necessarily had to do that. Did he have to do that? I don't think he had to do that. I mean, at that time, right, the last Star Wars movie was Return of the Jedi. Star Wars was one of the greatest cinematic achievements in motion picture history at that time. Star Wars was one of the greatest trilogies in the history of motion pictures at that time. Star Wars was on a high. I mean, it had been dead for a long, I don't mean dead as in nobody cared, but I mean, you know, 1983, when he finally saw Jurassic Park in 1993, and he was like, oh my God, I can actually do this. And then I think it was 95 when he began writing it, 97 when he began shooting it. I mean, if he wanted to seek full-on financing, oh, he has. Oh yeah, no, you're right, Brandon. He's been a billionaire for years. But if he wanted to partner with a studio and get them to finance it and not pay for it out of his own pocket, he absolutely could have done that. He could have done that. There's no reason why he could. I don't think there's a studio on the planet back in 1997 that would not have jumped at the opportunity for that. But he would have relinquished a certain amount of creative control. And so, being the self-financer, the buck stops with him. You know, it's his fucking money. So, yeah, that's crazy. Wild stuff. Let me see here. Evil Alex says, you yourself took more or less of famous IP in Black Christmas to create buzz and eyes on your talent in studio. It's not on Mickey Mouse level, but it's still kind of the same style of idea to catch interest. Not really. Because I think if we wanted to do that, like, I don't know if you just tuned in late, Evil, but I understand what you're saying, but not really. You know, full disclosure, if we wanted to do that, we would have done it. Why would we have chosen Black Christmas, right? Black Christmas is an IP. I mean, there's a reason why It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 has 70,000 views. And Dylan's New Nightmare had 100,000 views in 3 days. It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 has 70,000 views in nearly 3 years. And Dylan's New Nightmare had 100,000 views in 3 days. So if we wanted to get eyeballs onto us, why would we have chosen Black Christmas, right? We chose Black Christmas because of the romanticism of it, really, at the end of the day. We knew going into it that this was not going to get a, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street level of eyeballs on it or interest. Those movies also have yearly interest, whereas Black Christmas is a seasonal film and really only gets hot between November 1st, not even November 1st, really after Thanksgiving, your American Thanksgiving, November 25th, 28th, 26th, and the end of the year. So there's really about 6 weeks where Black Christmas, unless there's some major news around it, like the studio is doing another movie, where it's really hot and people take a lot of interest. So it wasn't Black Christmas that we were banking on. We chose Black Christmas because it was a Canadian horror movie and we were Canadian. And I thought it would be cool to tackle Black Christmas because it was a relatively unknown IP. And I knew out of the gate, Bruce and I, when we turned 40, we knew out of the gate that at this time we were going to make a movie with professional studio quality. Like we were going to deliver a professional production value film, right? From top to bottom, picture and sound and acting and all that kind of stuff. That's what we wanted to do. So we thought, well, we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew, right? We wanted to do something that that already had a established sort of history for a sandbox that we could play in. But it wasn't so we could get it wasn't so we could get eyeballs onto us because of Black Christmas. Like that really wasn't the reason, because there's a lot of other things out there. If that was one of the driving, I'm not saying it was no force, but if that was one of the driving forces, we would have chosen a completely different IP. We knew going in that this was not going to get a lot of eyeballs in terms of, because of the interest of the IP, right? So, people used to reach out to me when It's Me, Billy was first released. And I think after a year, it had like 30,000 views or something like that. And people would say to me, they would try to say it to me in a passive aggressive way, in the chat room and in DMs and stuff. It's like, It's Me, Billy only has 30,000 views. Not a lot of, it's like, well, they were trying to paint this picture like it's only got 30,000 views, therefore it must be bad, or therefore it must not be, a very, well-produced film. And I always came back and say, well, it's because of the interest, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and said, listen, I really don't care about Black Christmas, but I care about you and what you're doing, so I would donate to your project. There's lots of people that do that. Black Christmas isn't the IP that you choose to get eyeballs onto you and your talents, if that's one of the reasons why you're doing it, right? Because therefore, why don't you just do like an original film? But we wanted to do something special for one of the greatest Canadian movies ever made. It's a Canadian staple, right? And a Canadian movie that had huge influence on horror. It's one of the most influential horror films in the history of the genre. Whether you realize it or not, it is. And so we saw an opportunity to do something special with the 50th anniversary coming up in the next few years, right? Because again, we knew it was all planned. We knew that we were going to do the first half of the movie and hopefully people like it. Then we'll do the next half of the movie and then, the 50th year anniversary and all that kind of stuff. And we thought this would be really cool. And let's do that. So that really was the driving force. Now, having said that, to your point, because we are delivering a professional product, are we hoping that people look at what we've been able to do with the relatively small budget that we've had and look at what we're capable of as filmmakers, not just as directors, but as producers, right? What we're capable of. Of course, we're hoping that people can look at this and go, wow, if this is what they're capable of doing with, a couple $100,000, because again, between the two films, right? Between the two films, it's about $220,000. If this is what they can do with a couple $100,000 and make it look as polished as, as this, what could they do with $5 million? Whatever the case is, right? Of course that is part of it. But it was never a driving force. It was never at the top of the list. It was really all about, let's do something special for Black Christmas. We're Canadian. Who better to do it than two Canadians, right? And because it's already an existing IP, there's some wiggle room here that we can have some fun with. But also remember too, there's no history. Black Christmas doesn't have a history, right? There's no mythology. There's no lore. There's no sequels, right? So we were relatively green. And so when I say that, although it's based on a pre-existing IP, like you had said, which is true, it really is original from top to bottom for all intents and purposes, right? It's not like we had any story or lore or sequels to draw from. We had nothing. We created it completely from scratch, essentially. So I do understand what you're saying. And it's not that you're completely wrong. I mean, certainly we knew that Black Christmas, there would be a certain level of interest, right? And like you just said, I mean, not Mickey Mouse interest, right? But it wasn't the driving force. Not even close. I have a difficult time believing that indie filmmakers choosing Steamboat Willie to do a horror movie with, that one of the main driving forces is not the fact that this is going to propel us into the Hollywood Reporter. Now, I'm not saying that they would know that. I'm just saying to that level. Because if that's what you want, if you want the world to look at you, well, that's what you do. You don't do a Black Christmas fan film. Right? You don't do that. You just don't do that. Right? We sent out a press release. We delivered a high production value, professional teaser trailer, right? Top to bottom. We sent out a press release to a number of outlets. Lynn Griffin is attached to our film. It's mentioned in the press release. We send it out. It's Christmas time. Nobody picked it up. So, nobody picked it up. Not Bloody Disgusting, which is strange because they have picked us up before in the past. So now why is that? Well, there's a number of reasons why they may not have. Maybe they just didn't want to pick it up. Maybe they just couldn't figure out a way to slip us in with all the other stuff. But I do find it weird because they have talked about us before in the past with Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Collider and Screen Rant. And here we are with the teaser trailer, and they don't pick us up at all. Now, they're not obligated to. They're not required to. There's no allegiance. They don't have to. They can do whatever the hell they want. But it is a little strange at Christmas time when you're talking about Black Christmas and other posts that you do not, got Lynn Griffin, you got this guy, this is great. Let's put up there, right? So even then, even at Christmas time, it's Christmas time. And here we are, full on, professionally produced, unofficial sequel, teaser trailer. Even then we can't get picked up. Right? So now that doesn't mean we won't when the trailer comes out, or maybe, next year when we actually release the movie. I imagine then, it will get picked up. But so there's a lot of I get what you're saying, but it was never at the forefront of our mind. It never actually crossed our mind that this would doing an original film would have given us probably just as much of a chance to get noticed as doing Black Christmas. Now, if we actually were hired to make it official, well, of course, because then you have, a studio behind you and all that kind of stuff. So even then, we're ready to go. Teaser trailer, Lynn Griffin's on board, professionally produced. There it is. Wow, look at this. If you guys saw the teaser, right? This looks great. Everything, God, that's good. And even then, we can't get picked up. So, of course, navigating the stigma of fan film is always a situation. But, again, we've been picked up many times before by Collider and Screen Rant and Bloody Disgusting. Why they didn't pick us up at Christmas time with a teaser trailer for the movie they were talking about earlier in the year, I don't know. I have no idea. Am I disappointed? Yeah, I'm disappointed because it seems a little strange. They're not obligated to, of course. And I am so grateful and so thankful that they've picked us up at all, at any point, because they certainly don't have to. But I do think it's a little strange, considering it's Christmas. So even then we're not guaranteed, right? So I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. But I think it's, I don't quite think it's as close to being similar as you're suggesting it is. I think it's very different. Davey Deathray sends in $4.99. Thanks, Davey. Says, don't know why the horror sites didn't help push the teaser, but I'd love to interview you and Bruce as we get closer to the release, help spread the word. For sure, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, there's a lot of podcasts out there. If you're watching this live or if you're watching after the fact, there's a lot of podcasts out there that have been wanting to interview myself and Bruce in regards to the film. And it's been going on now for, a couple of months. And I sincerely apologize to all the podcasts out there that I've had to delay. Things have just been crazy busy. And there's been a lot of things going on. And Bruce, of course, in his schedule, he's had to move again. When I say again, because he moved into his new house where he is, he's been there for about 4 or 5 years. They're moving again, not too far away. So there's a move that he's doing, which is a big thing. And of course, he's inundated with all his work. And of course, there's the movie and all that kind of stuff. So coordinating our schedules, full disclosure, it would be easier to get me than it would be to get me and Bruce. Now, having said that, that's not me saying I don't want me and Bruce. For sure. I'm just saying that to coordinate our schedules as a team is always trickier because he's a lot busier than I am. He's married. He's got a family. He's got kids. They're going to college. He's got his 9-to-5 job in the industry. He's got, the movies doing. He's got other things. He's got, It's Me Billy Chapter 2. He's got so much. He's a very, very busy man. And so coordinating is very tricky. So I sincerely apologize to all those out there who've been wanting to get us on your show. Definitely now that it looks like, things are slowing down a bit, I think we're going to have more time to do that. It's not personal. I don't, there's some people I don't even know. So, but definitely, yes, Davey, for sure. Let's do it. I think that would be fun. And yeah, I don't know why either. I'm not sure. I mean, again, they're not obligated to, right? I mean, it could be a matter of a situation where if we had never been picked up, then I would just conjure it up to be, it's the fact that we're, unfortunately, as professional as the product is, we are a fan film, and it probably has something to do with that. But that's not the case because Bloody Disgusting has picked us up many times, as has Collider and Screen Rant at various times throughout this whole It's Me Billy journey. So, and picked up the press releases that I've sent out. So why they didn't this time, I don't know. But I am disappointed because twas the season, especially when those same outlets are releasing Black Christmas articles, right? You're like, this would be a perfect companion to kind of, but who knows? I mean, maybe they don't like me, I don't know. I don't know them and they don't know me. So I hope that's not the case, but, maybe I don't know. I don't know how many editors they have. Maybe the editor that picked it up is an editor that wasn't the same editor that picked up the other one. And they were like, who cares about this? You know what I mean? Had it been the other editor, they may have been, yeah, let's do this. You know what I mean? These outlets can have various different writers and editors and who knows? I have no idea. But yeah, I'm disappointed, because I think it was worthy. I mean, absolutely, it was worthy of news at Christmas time. But it is what it is, and this is the struggle that we face, right? It's nothing new, in terms of trying to get It's Me Billy and Black Christmas, or It's Me Billy as it relates to Black Christmas out there. I mean, it's been tough. So certainly if we wanted to show off what we could do, there were easier roads and easier avenues to take to be able to do that. This is really about honing our skills, showcasing what we can do. Absolutely. That absolutely is it. Using it as a portfolio piece for sure. That's why we're delivering it at the level that we're delivering it at, right? Because we want to be able to show what we can do with, real actors, real crew, all that kind of stuff. But it is truly a nod and a tribute to Black Christmas, to, as Canadians, tipping our hat to one of the great Canadian films. So, and then seeing what it can do, what we can do from it, and hopefully there'll be somebody out there, a studio or an executive or a producer or somebody out there that sees what we can do and says, you know what, these guys, that's pretty, because it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work, to be able to, Cecil Laird and Vincent DeSanti will be able to tell you, to be able to produce something that looks like it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work, and you have to allocate that money to all the right departments, and to be able to do, because that's why there are some movies that cost more than others, but don't look like, that's why there are some movies that cost more than others, but look like they cost less than the one that costs more. Do you know what I mean? Oh no, am I saying that right? I think I'm saying that right. So you could have like a $10 million movie that looks like it cost $100,000, or you can have a $100,000 movie that looks like it cost $10 million. Well, why is that? Well, it's because there's a variety of reasons why, but it's primarily because of the allocation of the funds. Where is the money going, right? Where is the money going? How are they utilizing that money, right? Who are they hiring, right? And so that's ultimately why, larger budgets doesn't mean that you watch a movie and there's explosions and pyrotechnics. This doesn't look like it cost $10 million. Well, what are you expecting a $10 million movie to look like, right? Is it like more money doesn't mean that, well, now I expect to see explosions and leaps and falls and that doesn't mean that at all. That would cost you more money, by the way, but that doesn't mean that, right? You know what I mean? It could mean the difference between, now we're actually going to be able to rent, a Pee Wee Dolly 3 and track, and now we can actually do that, and we can put it up there and all that. I mean, guys, it costs a lot of money. I mean, renting cinematic grade cameras and lighting and grip and C-stands and I mean, just the lights and everything, it costs thousands of dollars, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how much our lighting package was. I can't remember, but I mean, a lot. You know what I mean? So anyways, it's where you allocate it, who you hire, right? Again, right? Are you hiring your friends, or are you hiring those who actually work in the business, in the industry, that do this every day? That's one very lucky, fortunate thing with us on the two Billy films, is that our crew, whether it's our DP, our gaffer, our key grip, our first and second AC, our boom sound recordist, our first AD, our makeup art, whatever the case is, they're all professionals that work in the business and that do it. And so they're not, but again, that's because we've chosen the money we've raised and budgeted, we've chosen to hire those people. We didn't have to, right? Hey, did we have to? No, we hired David Fernandez as our first AD. He's part of the DGC, the Directors Guild of Canada. He's a professional. He's a director himself. He's been doing this for decades. He knows what he's doing. He's very good at his job. Did we have to hire him? No, I guess I could have knocked up on my, neighbor's door and been like, hey, do you want to, we hired Greg Bennett, 3-time CSC Award nominee, been doing it for decades, professional, shot on everything from DSLRs to the Red to the Airy to everything. He shot features and, and shorts and music videos, and he's a professional. Did we have to hire him? No, I guess I could have shot it myself, or I could have hired my friend Bob to, but again, right, it's how are you allocating the money, right? Where is it going and all that kind of stuff. So one of the goals for us was if we're going to make, if we're going to step it up now and we're going to have this kind of budget, we want to be able to showcase what we can do. And so certainly that is part of it, for sure. But to be more paralleled, I think we would have to have chosen something else other than Black Christmas. There's a very little, it's getting a lot of love now, but the footprint for Black Christmas is really small in comparison, and even smaller because it's seasonal. But yeah, I don't know why. I'm disappointed that they didn't pick us up. And maybe if they had never picked us up, I probably wouldn't have been disappointed. I'm like, well, they've never picked us up. But they've picked us up many times. I'm like, oh, you didn't pick us up, guys. Guys, missed opportunity. Anyways, shout out to those at Bloody Disgusting, Collider, Screen Rant, wherever else I sent. Again, it's not personal. At least I hope it's not. I mean, I don't know them, so I hope it's nothing personal. They're great guys and gals, and they work hard. And maybe they just were like, we just can't fit it in. Lee the Machine Bowers sends in $19.99. Thank you, Lee. Says, gotta head out. Got a doctor's appointment. Have a good day. Good luck with Saturday's shooting, and fingers crossed, no delays. Hope the snowstorm turns in a different direction. Cheers, my friend. Well, thank you, Lee. Really appreciate that. And again, thank you for the very generous super chat. I appreciate that. There's a snowstorm rolling into the Toronto area tomorrow. Well, it's already snowing. Well, it was snowing earlier, and we're supposed to get a whopper of a storm tomorrow. Some parts of the country could get like 8 or 9 inches of snow, if not more. Parts of the country, parts of the province. I'm hoping, I think we're only going to get maybe like 5 to 10 centimeters, which is like, I don't know what, 3. Well, how much is that? No. 5 centimeters is 1 inch. So 10 centimeters is 3 inches. So it's not nothing, but I'm hoping it's not too bad tomorrow, and we can still roll on Saturday. All right, we'll go for about another 10 minutes here, and then we'll go for about another 10 minutes, and then we'll stop it. It's been a good show so far, though. Lots of good questions. People talking amongst each other. Does that answer it wasn't really a question. It was more of a statement you made, Evil Alex. But does that help to give sort of some insight? Because again, it's not that you're like completely wrong. I mean, obviously we hope that people, for sure, but it wasn't the driving force. It was never really like full disclosure, full honesty. It never really crossed our minds. It was really more about doing something for Black Christmas and doing something special and it was really more about that. It never really crossed our minds that we were going to have any sort of like big, now with Olivia Hussey on board, right? Obviously that was important for us, and we knew that would lend credibility to the project. Unfortunately, she had to back out, but the show must go on, as they say. The show must go on. But certainly having Lynn on board is great. Obviously, that lends credibility, of course, and which is always great. But yeah, if we wanted an easier road, there were easier things than Black Christmas, for sure. Let me see here. Brandon Collins says, is 10 centimeters a lot? I was told that's a lot. It's 3 inches. 10 centimeters is 3 inches. And by the way, as a Canadian, for my American friends, although we have the metric system up here, and I believe the United States is one of the only countries in the world, one of them, I think that still, does it the other way around. I think because we're so closely tied to the U.S., it's very strange up here. We measure ourselves in pounds, not kilograms. So when I step on a scale, I'm like, oh, I'm 160 pounds, or oh, I'm 150. You know what I mean? We don't ever like, oh, I'm 68 kilograms. Never. But yet, we're kilometers instead of miles. We measure ourselves in feet. How tall are you? I'm 5'8". I don't say I'm 1 meter and 73 or 173 centimeters, whatever it is. 173 centimeters? No. 1 meter and anyways, I don't even know. 1.73, whatever. 5'8" is, right? We never do that. Nobody up here, like if I ask, hey, Bruce, how tall are you? He's not going to go, well, I'm actually 107. Never. We don't do that. But yet our gas is in liters, not gallons. Our gas is in liters and not gallons. We're kilometers an hour, not miles per hour. But yet we measure ourselves in pounds and feet. And if I bring out a tape measure to measure something, I don't measure it in centimeters. Nobody does up here. I mean, maybe some people do up here, I'm sure. But I'm like, oh, that's 6 inches. That's about 6. It's very strange. It's very weird. It's like a hybrid up here. It's a hybrid, totally. It's very weird. Very weird. Joseph Aaron sends in $5. Thank you, Joseph. Says, afternoon, Dave. Dropping in to say hey and can't wait for IMDb 2. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, we can't wait for people to see it. You know, it's, again, I mean, you do the best you can and you let the chips, or you put it out there and then you let the chips fall where they may, right? You got to do what you got to do. But I'm excited to get it all wrapped up. I mean, when it's finally done and out there, this will have been 5 years of my life and 5 years of Bruce's life, because we started this in 2019. If you go back and if you YouTube Dave McRae, Black Christmas, 2019 or something, you might have to do that. There will be an announcement video on my channel. It's from July. I think it might have even been from, it was from July of 2019. And so this is 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. I was making the announcement that I had entered into pre-production or development on a Black Christmas fan film. And I was all excited, but I was, and I was saying, even then I was saying, but we're going to take it seriously and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to deliver something really good. And we'll do an Indiegogo campaign, soon and all that kind of stuff. That was almost 5 years ago. It was 4.5 years ago. And so by the time this movie comes out, it will have been 5 years of my life. And I'm ready to move on. Like I am. I'm ready to move on to step away from the fan film genre. I don't know. But to step away from fan films and now finally move myself and Bruce and Dark Chapter Pictures in a direction where we can actually make a feature. I would like to make a feature film. We have ideas. We have all sorts of ideas. A couple of the ideas. Well, you don't know the details, but obviously about the horror idea that there was interest from a studio. And so, I finally want to be able to move in that direction and finally be able to, because I can tell you right now, because It's Me Billy Chapter 2 was a full-on scale union shoot, totally pro. I will never again in my life work as hard as I did on this movie and not get paid. That might sound, hopefully it doesn't sound, I mean, why should anybody do anything for free, right? But we have worked so hard, and because we're indie, right? And we're not backed by a studio. And although we have a lot of money, it's not like we have tons and tons of money or an endless supply. We have to be very strategic in our planning and what we do and all that. And by the way, the It's Me Billy Chapter 2 Indiegogo campaign is still live. It's in demand. So if you want to pick up a Blu-ray or a hoodie or a t-shirt, or there's one associate producer perk left, it's still there. So I'm just saying, links in the description. But that won't last forever. I mean, eventually we're going to close that. Right. So, but yeah, no, I'm excited to finish on Saturday. I'm excited to finish the movie, but I am equally as excited to move on. I'm really excited to move on and to move on to other projects and, projects that, hopefully, it's not that I wouldn't turn to crowdfunding again. Crowdfunding's tough though, because the crowdfunding in and of itself is very difficult because you've got to, look at all the energy, right? It takes to crowdfund. You have to get people to believe in you and the project, you especially. And part of the money you raise from crowdfunding about 9% of it Indiegogo takes. So Indiegogo already has taken 9% of what we raised, right? And I think that was like, what, $14,000 or whatever it was off the top goes to Indiegogo. And then there's the money you have to allocate. I mean, you budget for this, obviously. I'm just saying, right? The realities of crowdfunding on Indiegogo. Then you have to budget, or allocate some of the money you've raised to also go to purchasing, making, shipping, all the perks, right? It's not like all the money we raise, all 140,000 goes into making the movie. Well, no, because Indiegogo takes their cut, and then there's going to be $20,000, $30,000 from that goes, into the perks, into the Blu-rays, into the shipping, and the, all that stuff too, right? Obviously, how much will depend on how much you raise and how many donors there are and all that kind of stuff. So crowdfunding is great because you don't have to rely, like you are in totally full on 100% creative control. But it's tough. It's really tough. And it would be easier moving forward if we didn't have to crowdfund, or we only have to crowdfund a little bit. You know what? Let's crowdfund. Let's see if we can crowdfund $50,000, to help get us going. Or something like that, right? Or, whatever the case is. Or you have to be like Chris Stuckman, who's got millions of followers and who crowdfunded over $1 million to make his movie. That's amazing. There's no way in hell we could do that. There's just no way. Mind you, we did crowdfund $140,000 or $150,000. Maybe we can. I don't know. But even then, that $1 million, oh my God, I mean, the percentage that Indiegogo would take would be huge. The percentage we'd have to allocate to the perks, obviously, right? So it's not like we get everything to go into the movie. Whereas when you're backed by a studio or you're backed by, a financer, you don't have to worry about, perks and hoodies and t-shirts and, all that money goes right into the movie. So, it's catch-22, right? There's pros and cons for both, obviously. But I think on our next project, I haven't talked to Bruce about this. I don't know what he wants to do. And again, too, not everything. I mean, Bruce and I, there are projects that we want to direct together, and there are projects that we already know we want to direct apart, right? I mean, we're Dark Chapter Pictures, but that doesn't mean we have to direct everything together. I mean, there's projects that I have in mind that Bruce will come on as a producer, but I will direct it. I'll be a producer as well, but I will direct it. And he's on as just a producer to help spearhead it, to help, guide it and direct it in the direction that it needs to go. And there's a project that is very close to his heart that he has, which is such a great idea that I know is his. And I'll come on as a producer, but he'll direct that and all that kind of stuff. And then there'll be projects maybe we'll want to direct together, right? The project that we were working on before we announced we went into development on Billy 2 is a horror movie that we would like to direct together. And I am so excited about this horror movie. But you need money. You need money. You need moolah. You need money, right? And so I don't know how much because a script hasn't been written. It's just a treatment. And we want to go back through the treatment and polish it and tweak it a bit. So there is no script yet. And whether Bruce and I will be the ones to write the script, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Or whether we'll get somebody to come on board and actually write it. I'm not sure yet. I have no idea. We may write it ourselves or we may not. We may hire somebody to do it. But nonetheless, it is a project, which I will eventually tell you more about, but it's the one that the studio was interested in and thought there was a lot of potential. And was very impressed with what we did with It's Me, Billy, Chapter 1. But anyways, and that door is still open. But so I really feel ready. I'm not saying that but I do feel ready at this point in my life. And having done Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of Billy, I feel ready now to, I don't know if the very next thing that we will do will be a feature. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be another short. I'm not sure. But I definitely feel ready to move on to the next thing. And the next thing being completely original in terms of not tied to a pre-existing IP. So we have to put a fan film label on it. It's something we actually don't have to do that with. And we can then, really put ourselves out there and seek distribution, and see where it goes, and who knows, guys? I mean, maybe in a couple of years, maybe even sooner, who knows? You'll be able to watch a movie that we made on Prime. How cool would that be? That'd be amazing, right? But the only way you get to doing that, obviously, is to buckling down and to really nose diving into original work that where there is that potentiality. And again, when I say original, I look at It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 and 2 as completely original. They are. There's never been a Black Christmas sequel. We're the only ones to have ever done it. It is based on pre-existing IP. But in terms of the mythology that we've created in Chapter 1 and 2 is completely original because there's nothing that's ever existed. So, the Agnes character, again, that's not from the 06 Black Christmas. That's from the original film. But anyway, so I'm excited to do that and to step into that direction now. It'd be fun. Brian Sanchez says, I'm saying I liked Halloween 2018 Kills and Ends. I'm not saying it's good. I love the kills. I'm not knocking. Oh, I guess you must be talking to somebody else. Okay, cool. All right. Have I missed any super chats? I don't think I've missed any. I just want to make sure I haven't missed any. It's great to see you guys here today and great to see everybody talking amongst each other. I love that. You guys are, awesome. Very cool indeed. Did I miss any super chats? Lee the Machine, Joseph Aaron, Davey Deathray. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Terrence Howell. I thought it was a chat. Just became a new member. Became a new member of level number 2. Terrence, I don't know if you're still watching, but if you are, awesome. Thank you so much for joining level number 2. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's awesome. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, Terrence Howell. Love it. Thank you, Terrence. Really appreciate that. All right, folks. Well, listen, I think that is going to do it for me here on this episode of McRae Live. We went a little longer than I normally do. I usually go about 90 minutes on these shows. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all the super chats that came in as well. And of course, thank you to Terrence for becoming a new member. Thank you to all my members. I really appreciate it. Thank you to my, of course, amazing moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you for doing what you all do. Really, really appreciate that. And jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on this new fad that seems to be taking place in the horror space in terms of these public domain lovable characters becoming horror slasher villains. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you agree with what I've had to say here today? I know I've talked a lot. What else is new? I've mentioned a lot of things. I've talked about a lot of stuff. Maybe there's stuff you agree with me on. Maybe there's stuff you disagree with me on. Whatever the case is, jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. I would like to know. And remember, we don't always have to agree. What fun would it be if we did? But we can at least be respectful when we disagree with each other, right? We don't always have to yell and scream and pretend it's Twitter. Fauci Cinema has been a member for 4 months, sends in a member chat and says, Dave is a legend among men. I don't know if I'd be a legend, but thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. Have a great day, brother. Yes, you too as well, Matt. Thank you for saying that. A legend among men. A legend among men. Davey Deathray, have a great day. Have a great day. Davey, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. You're amazing. You know you are. And I'll be back soon. Tomorrow we're loading out for Saturday, so I'll be busy tomorrow, but I just hope the storm doesn't, oh God. I mean, we're going to get snow. We're going to get snow. The question is, how much of it are we going to get here in the GTA, and will it be so bad that we're going to have to, I hope we don't have to. We shouldn't, because the storm is like tomorrow evening overnight, and then by the morning it's supposed to be not too bad, and hopefully the plows will be out and people can still get to, It's been such a pain in the ass trying to shoot this last scene. Anyways, oh, hey, Andrew Stevens, $10. Thanks, buddy. Says, as Frank would say, for the sexy people in the chat. Yes, shout out to the sexy motherfuckers in the chat. And for the sexy MFers. Amazing, amazing. All right. Yes, have a great rest of your day, everyone. And I will talk to you all soon. All righty. Cheers.